People don't pay you for your credentials. They pay you for how they feel in your presence. That might sound outrageous, but it's the truth no one tells you. There's something no one teaches us in school: how to own our inner authority. Instead, we're taught to wait for permission, to collect stamps of approval, to chase degrees, certificates, and legitimacy. But what if I told you, some of the most transformative voices in the world never had any of that? They didn't ask for permission. They became the permission. They spoke from the soul, not a syllabus, and people paid them, not because they were qualified, but because they were real. Carl Jung, one of the deepest thinkers in psychology, believed in something called archetypes, ancient patterns that live inside all of us. You don't earn them, you embody them, and that changes everything. So in this video, I want to talk about how you can step into that power, how you can make people pay you for your truth, even if you've never been to school for it, even if you don't have letters after your name. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to share how your story becomes your credibility and why that story is more valuable than any piece of paper. Plus, I'll reveal the #1 unconscious belief that's secretly blocking people from charging for their gifts and how to shift it. Let's start with a hard truth. People don't pay for information anymore. We've got enough of that. It's everywhere. What people pay for now is transformation. They pay to feel understood, supported, seen. They pay to experience a shift inside themselves. And transformation doesn't require credentials. It requires clarity, authenticity, and emotional resonance. That's what makes someone want to open their wallet, not because you're qualified, but because you made them feel something real. You could be a 25-year-old who struggled with anxiety and learned to self-regulate, and a 45-year-old executive might pay you thousands to help them do the same. Why? Because transformation doesn't follow age, resume, or status. It follows truth and lived experience. And yet, so many people hide their truth. They don't feel ready. They think, who am I to charge? And Jung would say, that's the wounded ego talking. That's the shadow. If you don't heal that, if you don't believe in your own worth, no strategy, no pricing formula, no business coach will save you. Because people feel your energy before they hear your words. And that's the key. Energy before evidence. People can sense if you're secretly ashamed to charge. They can feel if you're looking for permission, waiting for someone to crown you as legit. But the unconscious doesn't lie. It picks up on what the ego tries to hide. When you embody your message, when your voice carries the frequency of truth, it creates a resonance that's undeniable. That's what people trust. That's what they pay for. So if you're watching this thinking, okay, but how do I actually get people to pay me? How do I become seen as that authority without faking it? Good. That means you're about to shift something deep, because now we're going to explore the exact mindset shift that turns your story into your magnet, and how to find your archetype so you stop waiting for the world to say yes. And now let me ask you something, not out loud, just feel into this. Have you ever sat across from someone who didn't have the fanciest title, but something about them made you lean in? Their presence, their story, their honesty, it just hit you in the chest. That's the power of embodied truth, and it's what people actually want to pay for. Let's clear something up, once and for all. Your story is your certification. Every breakdown, heartbreak, burnout, rock bottom, aha moment, quiet healing, and late-night journal entry. It all matters. Carl Jung would call this the individuation process, the path of becoming who you truly are, beneath all the masks. And when you walk that path consciously, it becomes medicine for others. But here's the twist. Most people are walking around disowning their medicine. They see their past as a liability, not a license. They hide the very parts that make them human. And that's the mistake. Because what builds trust today isn't polish, it's presence. Let me show you something. Picture two people offering the same service. One says, "I have a certificate from XYZ Academy. I've taken 48 hours of training." The other says, "I've lived through this pain. I've walked the path you're on. I've healed, and I'm here to walk with you." Who do you trust more? The first one might get your attention, but the second one gets your heart. Because we're not hiring a robot. We're hiring resonance. We're drawn to those who've survived the fire and come back with stories that sound like our own. That's why Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, and that's what makes you valuable. Not because you've been trained, but because you've transformed. That's what creates emotional credibility, not a polished script, not a perfect brand, but being a mirror." And this is where most people miss the mark. They think credibility means looking the part, dressing a certain way, speaking like a motivational speaker, faking it till you make it. But that only works when you're in your head, not in your truth. So here's what I want you to remember. Your pain is not a weakness. It's your portal. Your mess is not your flaw. It's your magnet. Your story is not a side note. It's your superpower. The question is, are you owning it? Or are you still editing your life so you look professional? And now we're going to explore the deeper layers of this, including why archetypes matter more than credentials, and how to embody the wise guide, healer, or rebel energy, so people feel your authority before you say a single word. Before we go on, ask yourself, if I treated my story like it was sacred, how would I show up differently? Sit with that, because the answers are already inside you. Now, let's go even deeper. Let's talk about something the business world barely whispers about, but the soul world knows deeply. The people who transform lives, the ones who spark real change, aren't always the most educated. They're the ones who've integrated their truth. Carl Jung called these people living archetypes. They don't play roles. They embody energy. They show up as the wise guide, the healer, the rebel, the mentor, or even the alchemist. And that energetic clarity speaks louder than any sales pitch. They don't need to prove they're the authority. They feel like the authority. And here's the secret. People don't consciously pay for that, but their unconscious does. The unconscious mind, yours, mine, your future clients, responds to frequency, emotion, archetype. That's why someone might say, "I don't even know why, but I just felt I needed to work with you." That's resonance at work. That's what money follows. So let me ask you this. What archetype are you hiding from? Did life train you to be the healer, but you're scared to claim it because you didn't go to medical school? Have you always had a rebellious spirit that questions the system, but you tone it down to stay respectable? Do people come to you for clarity, for reflection, for peace, but you still think, who am I to charge for this? Jung would call this the unintegrated self, the part of you that knows your power but doesn't trust it yet. But when you finally own your archetype, unapologetically, something profound happens. You no longer need to sell. You no longer need to perform. You become magnetic, because the world is aching for realness. People are starving to feel seen, and the most powerful thing you can offer is yourself, whole and unedited. Every archetype can earn, every single one. Money is not reserved for the strategist or the salesman or the online entrepreneur. Money follows value, and every archetype creates value in their own way. So if you've ever thought, I'm just a creative, I'm more spiritual, not business-minded, I like to support others, but I'm not a leader, let's stop right there. You're not just anything. You're carrying an archetype that's designed to make impact, and yes, to generate income. Let me show you how. Number 1. The healer. You don't need to be a therapist. Your presence is medicine. Healers are paid to hold space. Think coaches, energy workers, grief guides, even breathwork facilitators. You earn by helping others come home to themselves. People will gladly invest in that emotional safety. Number 2. The rebel. You challenge the system. You see what's broken before anyone else. Rebels earn by creating what doesn't exist yet. You launch podcasts, movements, disruptive products, radical content. You're the one who says, "No more," and builds something better. People pay rebels because they trust them to lead revolutions. Number 3. The wise guide, sage. You hold deep clarity and offer truth that pierces through noise. You earn by simplifying complexity, offering frameworks, philosophies, mentorship. Whether it's on YouTube, in a book, a course, or a community, people invest in your perspective. You help them make sense of their life. Number 4. The lover, empath. You're heart-centered. You care deeply. Your currency is compassion. Whether it's in relationships, parenting, or inner work, you hold others through their most vulnerable transitions. People will pay to feel safe, seen, and soothed in a world that's starving for softness. Number 5. The creator, artist. You don't just make art, you transmit soul. Creators monetize through visual art, storytelling, music, design, even intuitive branding. You help people feel alive, and that's worth more than you realize. Beauty heals, and beauty sells. Number 6. The alchemist, mystic. You connect the seen and the unseen. From spiritual teachers to intuitive business coaches to tarot readers, the alchemist earns by translating energy into clarity. You give shape to mystery. You hold rituals, lead ceremonies, offer spiritual frameworks. And yes, spiritual work can be paid, because transformation has value, even if it's not tangible. The point is this: you don't need to become someone else to get paid. You need to become more of who you already are. Every archetype has a pathway to prosperity, but it only opens when you stop disowning your design. When you own it, unapologetically, your audience, clients, or community can finally recognize what they've been looking for. Not an expert, not a guru, not a checklist, a mirror. And here's where it gets bigger. This isn't just about you getting paid. This is how we change the world. When you embody your truth, not just speak it, not just market it, but live it, you give others permission to do the same. That's what Jung meant when he said the most dangerous thing is the unlived life. When we deny our gifts, we perpetuate a society of numbness, burnout, and disconnection. But when you choose to live your archetype fully and freely, you become a walking invitation for healing. You reflect possibility. You shift consciousness, not through information, but through frequency. That's how we make the world a better place. Not by climbing hierarchies, not by collecting trophies, but by saying, "This is who I am. This is what I've lived. And I offer it with love." And yes, people will pay for that. Not because you manipulated them, but because you awakened something true in them. And now we'll go into the final inner block that stops most people from ever stepping into this truth: their relationship with money itself. Because the sad truth is, many of us have been taught that being paid for our gifts is selfish, that helping others should come from sacrifice, that receiving is less spiritual than giving, and that belief is keeping the most heart-led people broke, burned out, and bitter. Let's unpack that and rewire your worth from the inside out. Here's what no one tells you when you're on a path of service, spirituality, or healing. If you subconsciously believe that asking for money makes you greedy, if you carry guilt every time someone pays you. If your nervous system tightens every time you say your rates out loud, people will feel that. Not because you're saying anything wrong, but because energy doesn't lie. Carl Jung said the unconscious is always communicating, even when the mouth is not. So when you carry unhealed shame around being paid, it leaks out in your posture, your tone, your marketing, your boundaries, your ability to receive. And people unconsciously respond to that energy. They either mirror your doubt or disappear entirely. So let's name the root. Most of us grew up in systems that taught us, do good, but don't profit from it. Be humble, not wealthy. Money is for business people, not people like you. If it's spiritual, it should be free. But those beliefs are not universal truths. They are inherited stories, handed down by systems that benefit when powerful, intuitive, heart-led people stay small. Now, let's flip that script. Imagine this. Every time someone pays you, it's not a transaction, it's a transformation. They are investing in becoming more of themselves. They are honoring their own growth. They are committing to their own healing. And you, through your gift, are holding the mirror. When you receive money with integrity, you're not taking, you're circulating. You're keeping the flow alive. You're allowing your cup to be full so you can pour into others sustainably. Because what happens when you can't pay your bills, but you're expected to help others heal? You become resentful, exhausted, disconnected from the joy of your gift, and that serves no one. But when you're nourished, when your needs are met, when your work is honored, when you feel valued, you show up brighter. You create deeper. You give from overflow, not obligation. That's what changes communities. That's what creates healing economies. That's what makes heart-led entrepreneurship revolutionary. It's not about chasing money. It's about aligning your energy so that money becomes an extension of your purpose. So now ask yourself, what old belief about money are you ready to let go of? What new truth are you willing to step into? Because here's the reframe. Getting paid for your gifts isn't selfish. It's sacred. Earning from your soul work isn't dirty. It's divine. Your worth is not up for negotiation. It's encoded in your being. You don't need to hustle. You don't need to beg. You just need to stop apologizing for existing. If this video spoke to your soul, share it with someone who's still waiting for permission. Drop this in the comments as your affirmation today. I am ready to be paid for being fully myself. Or write your own. Something that feels true in your body. Something your future self will thank you for claiming today. And if you're ready to keep evolving and exploring this kind of transformational, soul-based content, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. This space is about waking up, owning your truth, and rewriting the story of worth and value from the inside out. Because the world doesn't need more professionals. It needs more people who remember who they are and charge accordingly. You're allowed to be seen, you're allowed to be supported, and you're allowed to be paid. Now go be who you are. The world is waiting.